Welcome to Teams Tuesday, a podcast about mastering the best about what other people have already figured out. Teams Tuesday focuses on insights and lessons that never expire. You will walk away from every episode with actionable insights that help you get better results and be more productive.
This was about as bizarre and easy as it gets.
The client just couldn't make up their mind.
I feel like we had top.
Went from a project of 20 weeks to just 2.
The DevOps was a cultural shift.
This is Teams Tuesday with your host, Peter Ward.
Welcome to Teams Tuesday. It's November the 19th, 2024. The second last meetup of the year, or Teams Tuesday of the year. My name's Peter Ward. I'm the host. Got another fellow MVP, Tom Daly. Tom, good to have you on the show. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and you're in New Jersey. Whereabouts in New Jersey are you on this?
I am in Tinton Falls, so it's right near where, maybe you've heard the new Netflix studio getting built down here.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, it's right next town over. Funny thing, the Netflix studio is actually in where I used to work at Fort Monmouth that closed down a long time ago.
All right, and that sounds like an army base, is it?
Yes, yeah. Back before the SharePoint days, I worked at Fort Monmouth.
Right. Okay. All right, and now it's Netflix. I did hear a rumor that Netflix were moving on to Azure. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay, I did hear that kind of rumor. So, Tom, I've known you for probably a good 14, 15 years. Tell me, where did you get started in SharePoint? What were your first version of SharePoint?
Well, that ties into what I just said. So at Fort Monmouth, when I graduated college, I took an internship there, and I had to, in order to do the internship, we had to go to school for our master's degree. So at Monmouth University. So there, for our master's program, I installed SharePoint on one of our servers downstairs, and we use that as like our document management system. So that was the version. I did install 2001, and then I quickly went to 2003, the next day, because it just got released, and it was, I'm not using 2001 if there's a newer version.
Right. Very, very cool. Yes, there is that. Okay. And now here we are, fast forward 2024, and you're the creator and the lead for Community Days. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so Community Days is a directory of events, and they're medium size to large size events. So you can go visit communitydays.org right now and take a look. And again, what kind of events? There used to be a site before that called SharePoint Saturday of SPS events, which was like SharePoint Saturday type of events. But now that site has been shut down after many years of service. And I decided there was that gap still, that people wanted events. They wanted to find Microsoft events specifically. So that's what the point of Community Days is. What you would go as event organizer and list your event on that site for visibility, right? And then Microsoft, in their product group meetings and their webinars, and they will announce those events going on in their so Power Platform community calls will announce events happening on that website, right? Same thing with SharePoint and Teams, and those they all look at this calendar of events. So there'll be events like Ignite on there, and the European SharePoint Conference and European Power Platform Conference, M365 Bangalore, Ahmedabad, DC, right? Everything's up there. So it's a great place for us that are in the community that like to visit that like to go to events, or people that are just new getting started. It's a good spot to go to find out events happening near you.
Yeah, I noticed it's not just SharePoint, it's also Dynamics and Power Platform and AI and all kinds of not the Microsoft stack.
Yes, we want everything. So if you are an event organizer happening to listen to this, you can go and list your event there. SQL, as long as it's Microsoft-based technology, 50% or greater. So you can't just have a JavaScript thing. It has to be something related to Microsoft technology.
Very, very cool. All right, that's my introduction or my introduction. So normally that's my warm up to to the headliner, Tom. So do you want to share your screen? So before you share, what is your topic here and why is it important?
Right. So my topic is Viva. Is about Microsoft Viva Connections, the key to a modern connected workspace and workplace. And the point of this is really to just show people who aren't really aware of Microsoft Viva, like what it brings to the table in terms everybody's working in teams, right? And you might have SharePoint in the background. You might, your internet has been built out, lots of resources. So it's really just a marriage of the two, bringing them together.
Okay. With that being said, or maybe you covered this, I don't know. What licenses do you need? Is it E3, E5, or?
You get Viva connections in whatever license you have. It's not anything extra that you have to pay for.
Okay, that's very cool. And generally, for it to work, what's the minimum employee headcount?
0. 1. It's so easy to put in and work. And if you're not using it, like, hopefully this demonstration will show you why you should. I've seen other organizations not have it implemented, and I'm always curious as to why is it not there? And there are maybe some reasons, but it's just something that's so easy to do. Like I don't see why you wouldn't do it.
Okay, got it. All right.
So let me share. Yes, let me share my screen. No special videos. All right, so looks like, all right, so you can see, key to a modern.
Microsoft Viva Connections, the key to a modern connected workplace.
Yes. All righty, let's get started then. Okay, click. Go to the next slide. Why is it not going? Oh, got to use this other window here. All right, so again, about me, Thomas Daly, Collaboration Director at Soho Dragon in NYC. I work with Peter. I'm a Microsoft 365 developer, and I'm 8 times win MVP award. I am heavily involved in the community, so I run a lot of events in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I'm not so active on the blogging, but I'm coming back. I have a few in my queue that I need to post. Like I said, community days, developer, organizer of events, and GitHub contributor for various projects. So real quick, let's get started on the actual topic that we're here for. So Viva Connections, what is it, right? Well, it's an employee engagement hub inside Microsoft Teams. So it's the personalized dashboard, which has resources specific to your location or your role. It's company news and announcements, so keeping your employees engaged and with the latest and greatest. Easy access to resources in there. There's a mobile friendly version, so bringing all that capability onto your mobile devices. And also SharePoint integration. So if you have SharePoint site already, if you have your SharePoint site and you have Teams, you just put them together. So we'll take a look at that. So this is here, what you're seeing here is Viva Connections, right? So, okay, what part of it is Viva Connections? Well, you're inside Teams, right? So you can see the Teams frame, and then you can see inside Teams, there's a little button at the tippy top there on the top of the rail. That is Viva Connections. That's the link into Viva Connections. So Viva Connections can show your SharePoint site, or it can show the Viva Connections dashboard. There is another concept of a dashboard, which this slide is about. So what we're looking at is our SharePoint intranet, but inside the intranet, there's a dashboard, and I've highlighted that in yellow. So you can see a Viva Connections dashboard. Let's go to the next slide because I have some information. It's like a resource panel, all the tools in one place. These are built on adaptive card extensions, and they're customizable. So you can put whatever you need on here. You can see some here: health check, holiday calendar, Cafe 40, so like the menu, and then maybe expenses. So these are quick and easy little cards that they're called, and help you navigate to different resources. So I mentioned these cards. Now, the cards they give you are not super great. So you have to, in order to really get that value out of these cards, you have to customize your own cards, like building your own cards. Just an example of one, like a company that I was dealing with, they were using Bonusly to give out employee credits, right? So it's sort of gamifying employees' contribution to the company. And we made a card that showed how many points that they had, right? And then there's quick actions like giveaway points or spend them, right? So it was a cool way to put this onto the Viva Connections to get people actively using it. So these things are built on the SharePoint framework. So if you're already comfortable with developing SharePoint framework, it's the same thing on the back end, but there is this there's a special interface that you have to deal with, because you can only have the cards have to look a certain way, right? They're either these larger cards or these smaller cards. So you have to work with those constraints on what you can display, but you can have a button that opens a modal and does whatever you want. So it's really just the little preview, the little card preview that you have to deal with, the templates.
All right.
So the next thing about Viva Connections is the feed. There's the concept of the feed, and the feed, which you can see here, it's a combination of things. So bring up the next slide. It displays organizational news from various places: Viva Engage communities, SharePoint sites, and even Stream. Right, so it's going to roll these things up for you to see. The only thing bad about this is that it's been retired in 2024, the feed web part on your, so this is the feed web part on your SharePoint page. That's being retired.
Is it being replaced by anything?
As far as I know, no, it's not. There's no direct replacement for it yet, but there is a different feed, so that I'll show you. There different feed, but it doesn't quite have all of this stuff in there. All right, so the next thing about Viva Connections is the resources. There's this long button type thing that shows you all of your resources that are being published to you, right? So what kind of resources there? You can create your own new structure, right? Or you can import resources from either your global navigation, your home site navigation, and you can also implement the audience targeting on these resources. So when we get into the demo, we'll show you what these resources are inside Viva Connections. Now, the last thing that I have in terms of just the slideshow is that there's quite a difference between the desktop experience and the mobile experience. So this is it's like, kind of people are not super happy about it because they feel like it should be kind of a similar experience. So again, this is my actual screenshot of my Viva connection. So you can see the link at the top left. It says Viva Connections. It's the uncustomized version. So this is my intranet here. You can see that when I get to the next slide, it's going to not look like this, right? So you're getting the feed at the top of all the news. You have the dashboard, which is right there. And then below that would be the resources. Now, if I go to the mobile experience, right, you don't get the same view. It's very much, you get the dashboard view, you get the feed view, and the resources as tabs, right? So it's a completely separate experience. But you can flip-flop between, you can kind of flip around. You can get to the regular SharePoint site. So I know a lot of this is probably confusing, but once I start to demo it, it'll be a lot more clear. So with that said, let's jump over to the demo. Oh, that's right. I have 100 windows open. Let me get to. All right, so I have to, since I'm already logged into Teams, I have to use Teams on the web. And I have dark mode enabled. So let me turn this dark mode off. Okay. All right, so this is what it looks like normally. As you can see, let me just refresh. We have my Viva Connections up in the top left of the rail. So it's very simple to set up. There are a few things that you need to do in order to set up. So if I click on the Viva Connections, I'm now brought to the Viva Connections landing page or homepage, which has the news feed, which are just articles from basically every SharePoint site that I have access to, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that just gets rolled up. The dashboard, which is pulling the dashboard from it's called the home site of SharePoint. So, well, I'll show you that in a second. And then resources, which I've just configured hard coded in these ones just because I didn't want to import. So this is Viva Connections. This is one view of it. Now there's also a feed page which does a little bit more. It sort of like aggregates again all of your information up to you, so it's like quick, easy to click on and see to stay connected within the organization. Now the way that we're using this in Soho, we're not using the connections dashboard. This is like a relatively newer thing. The way that we have it in our company here is we have it going directly to our SharePoint page. So you could pick this, you can have it go to the Viva Connections dashboard or homepage, or you can have it go directly to your SharePoint site. And it's a little complicated on how you get back and forth. And this is sort of one of my issues with it. There's go to the dots. You'd have to click on go to connections, and then you'd have to know to click on the icon to get, back and forth between the two experiences. A little difficult to really know that off the top of your head, or to even stumble across it. Sorry. So one thing here you'll notice is our Tiger. I called it the Tiger Zone. It's really just a fake name for my intranet. So you have the news feed here. We have the Viva Connections dashboard on the side. Now, this is optional. You don't have to have the Viva Connections dashboard on your intranet. Every picture inside Microsoft will, demo with Viva Connections will show you that it's there. But if you're on the site, right, I'm not actually on the site, so I can't configure. I just want to show you one thing. Once the gear comes up, you can, once it's activated and it's your home site. So what I mean by home site is it has to be like nominated to be the home site, and it also has to be at the root of your tenant. It can't be like site/intranet. It has to be at the very top. But once you do that, you can go to manage Viva Connections, and you can see the dashboard. You can go to this dashboard, and this is where you define the dashboard. So you just edit it like a bunch of, web part page. You can add cards. There's the bonusly one. It's different cards that can go on there, and then when you publish that, that's what gets pushed onto here, right? And that's what gets pushed onto the mobile app view. So yes, like I said, it's very simple, but why is it powerful? Because again, it right inside Teams, you're not context switching, you're staying right inside the application. You are going to be able to access your intranet and do search and across your intranet, get to all your links, your subsites, your files, all of that with just staying inside Teams. Now I'm playing with my phone while I'm talking because I want to show you the I want to show you the mobile view if we have a few seconds. So while I get that up, is there any Peter? Do you have any questions?
So we're doing. If you look at our Soho Dragon, we have a SharePoint intranet site. Why would you go for the SharePoint intranet site rather than for experience rather than this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So why, if I'm on the desktop, I have a lot of real estate. I can have the SharePoint site up on one side. I could have Teams up on the other side. But if I'm on the go, or if I'm a frontline worker, I might just be limited to like my phone, right? And it's harder to switch those screens. So by doing this, you're making it easier for somebody to search across them and just navigate between them, right? Because maybe you have the SharePoint app, but it's harder to context switch on a smaller device. So I think that probably be the best reason why you would do this. And now from the frontline worker or from the mobile user, this is again the experience. So I'm not, even though my default experience is to show the intranet, I don't get that here, right? I'm getting the dashboard, the feed, and the resources. Right, so if I wanted to go to the intranet here, I'd have to click on the button, and then I would get to the intranet. So it's a different experience on the mobile device, which is not. I don't like that so much, and
but it's responsive, isn't it?
This is all responsive because again, it's basically your SharePoint site just zip down into one column.
So is this like another app on my phone kind of thing?
No, this is just Teams. I'm actually in Teams. Sorry, so I probably skipped that. I'm in Teams, and then alongside of Teams, like I have my chats, my shifts, whatever buttons I have there. I've already pinned the Tiger Zone, my intranet, to the first point. And you set up Viva Connections, and then you go to Teams, and you can pin this app into. You can set up a custom icon and set colors and all that, and you pin that into Teams. So again, you have access to all your teams, and just to show you, so there are slight variations, which, like if I was to search something on here, I think the search experience is slightly different, right, on what I would get. So if I did a custom search in SharePoint, it takes you to that search page. But if I'm doing that here, it's somewhat different, right? Yeah, not seeing all those same results, right? I don't see those people right off the bat. Well, demo is not going to come up with anybody. But yeah, so you have it's a slightly different experience. And again, when you're trying to teach users about it and train them and sort of like you got to explain to them that yeah, it's going to be slightly different. And hopefully that's not going to prevent you from setting it up and installing it because there is a lot of power and value to implementing it. Okay. All right. So again, with going back to let's go back here. Kind of brush through it very quickly. That's all I really have for the demo, actually. Let me see one more thing.
So behind these tiles, or not cards, as you say, is it a SharePoint list?
Oh, so let's go back to the intranet. This is another thing. So the navigation also shows up here with your news. So you got your sites that you're following right there, but let me try to get out of search. Maybe switch back and forth. There we go. Okay, so these cards, right? You were saying about these cards. Are
Yeah.
they tied to a SharePoint list? Well, they could be, right? So if you custom develop the card, you can tie it to any type of resource that you want. It could be SharePoint list. Again, where is it pulling that information? It pulls it. The dashboard is located on my home site. So if I had lists and libraries in here, I could be pulling information from here. Right, that's the only way to get to the dashboard. Yeah, so assign tasks. I could probably be using Graph, Card Designer, Quick Links. Quick Links, you've all seen Quick Links.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah, it's very popular. But it's different than the regular Quick Links.
No, I like the old mega menu thing.
Yeah, and again, it's an investment though in the dashboard, right? The widgets that they give you are somewhat okay, but the real power, the real value is building your own, right? Maybe you have a system, like instead, like Bonusly, it was like an employee rewarding system. Maybe you have one for your HR if you're using, Bamboo, and you can pull the information in to SharePoint to show people, hey, this is how many hours you have left to take vacation, or here's a quick link to apply for leave, right? Those are good cards, right? Stuff that people want to take action on. This card changes here.
And can you target these cards like in a SharePoint group to say only people in the SharePoint sales group and marketing group?
You can target the cards, but it's more of a AD group. So, and some cards are, audience. You're not going to. There's no real, since this goes across different SharePoint sites, right? It's going to be AD, and I don't know if I have any. Yeah, all company members. This is an O365 group. This is everybody in the company. It's going to be some based Active Directory because again, it's spanning across multiple sites. Right. So when they say in the marketing, like the Viva Connections marketing, able to target role specific and location specific, they're assuming that you have people in groups based on their roles and based on their location. Right. So that's what then when they're talking about targeting things, right? I can say like Houston, right? And maybe we have a Houston group and all employees, you can create dynamic groups that have anybody in this one region or would go into this bucket. Like we have in New York, we have the New York employees group versus, Soho, California or Soho, India, right? So that's the way you can target specific locations.
Okay, so it's an AD. Okay, obviously because it's going across different site collections and sites, you can't do the groups.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier too, like with the when you customize these cards, right? There's certain formats that you have to stick to, like the card size, right? You can have large or medium card. So there's large and medium, but it's like medium's the smaller one. There's different layouts, right? So you have the picture. You have the picture on the right-hand side, you have the text, the header. There's not much variation, right, in the icon. So when you build these cards out, like they all literally they can all look very similar. Yeah, there you go. So you can have different types, heading card, image card, description card, different sizes, the different icons. You can pick from the library of Microsoft components.
Nice.
This is the card designer card. So it basically builds the card for you. Do you want a button on there? Whoop. Oh, yeah. So you want a secondary button. You want a primary button. So I'd have to put this to large. So there are tools to help you sort of build these out, audience tips on creating better cards, right? It's all in this card designer. Right, and then what comes out is the adaptive card. So this is where it gets a little complicated, right? So there's like this, it could get complicated because it's like JSON structure of these cards. All right, so I'm gonna kill the dashboard. Let me show you, if we have some time, I'll show you how you set this up in Teams. So let me go into the administrative center. There are, like I said, a few things. You gotta, if you don't have if your SharePoint site, if your home site is not here, you have to do like a site swap, right? So say your homepage is like /sites/intranet, you would have to site swap to get that to go up to the top level. And you used to have to only site swap with PowerShell, but now you can do a lot within the admin center. So say this was my site, I could now site swap this. Well, there was a setting here in I'm not going to be able to do it on the spot. I know I've done it like twice through the UI, but there was a way to do a site swap. Oh, there it is, replace site. So yeah, it doesn't show up for everything. Oh yeah, so you'd have to pick the top level site and then you click replace site and then it asks you what site do you want to replace it. That's technically a site swap. They just renamed it to replace swap. And then another thing is you have to make it your home site. So you have to say manage my home site and then set this as your home site. And then the last thing that you need to do is to go into the Teams admin center and go into your Teams apps and search for Viva Connections. I renamed it. So let's just see. Yeah, let's say Tiger. There it is. So it shows it's called Viva Connections, but you can customize it. So I've clicked customize, and then you can call it whatever you want. Give it a description, URL, change the icons, change the background color, and then save it. And then you go over to your policies, right, and find the policy that's being applied. And you can go in here and you can add the app and pin it to your rail. So you can see this is what my rail looks like, and you can put it at the bottom. You can put it. Most people put it at the top, right? Because it's the more important. That's one of the more important things. So then once you save that in a couple hours or whenever Teams decides to refresh, you'll get your icon, and your Viva connections, and it's that simple.
And this basically is all no code, really, isn't it?
Yeah, to get it started, you don't even have to. No, you used to have to know PowerShell. Now you don't need to know PowerShell. It's all available with just clicking around. And I go, so when we installed Viva Connections, we were one of the first ones to do Viva Connections. Like it just launched, and I was like, Peter, we got to do this, right? And you're like, well, why? I'm like, because we can, right? We want to put SharePoint into Teams, right? So initially, you used to have to build that package in SPFX, the Viva Connections Teams app. Now it's just easily available. I can't even click on it. Now it's just available inside the app, and all you have to do is add the icons, the logo, the icons, the name of it, and then pin it to the rail. It's so easy nowadays. And you used to have to do the site swap with PowerShell and make it a home site with PowerShell, and now that's available through the UI. So it makes it so easy nowadays. It's not, there's lowest barrier to get this thing installed.
Well, that's kind of like the science projects, the SharePoint science projects, few and far between.
Yeah, I think to set the default experience, right? And that's not even, I don't even think that's PowerShell. Sometimes, on occasion, things may be PowerShell, but I believe you could even set the default experience, right? So there was one more step that I sort of didn't cover here, and that is inside the SharePoint. Oh, I'm sorry, inside the global admin center, there is another option over here in settings for Viva. So you have to create an experience in Viva. So you have to go to the Viva thing and go to Viva Connections. And it's a step-by-step guide. Like, here's how you do it. Everything that I said is right here. Setup and management. You got to create and manage the Viva experience, right? So you just create a new one. We've already have one. What is the URL of this experience? It's going to show up in draft mode. You then make it enabled. You can set audiences on here. You can set permissions on there. And then once this is live, that's it. So this is just creating the connection. So you have to do this, then go back, then do the Teams part. Otherwise, you do them out of order. It gets the same effect as long as they're done, all taken care of, right? So it's tell you exactly what to do. And then pin it to Teams right there.
Pretty good, very good. Now, tell me, I know they renamed Yammer. Is this really what Yammer's morphed into? That's a question that's come up, by the way.
I was trying to look up what the initial name of this was. Like, I know it was always called Connections because we did it so long ago and it was hard. I still think it probably was always called Viva Connections, but what you're talking about is Viva Engage, right? That was Yammer. So you can see, yeah, there's Viva Engage. This is Yammer, it's just been rebranded, renamed to Viva Engage. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are using it. They're using it for to build out these communities. So by default, you do have these all company communities, and a lot of folks that I have been speaking with, they're actually putting this on their right here, like on their intranet, right? So creating this right on the homepage, right? This is the all company channel. And you can ask questions, discussions, and polls. So this is a little different, but it is Viva. I mean, I'm sorry, it is Yammer for those that know what Yammer was. It's just been now called Viva Engage.
Right. Okay. Because obviously the one I used Yammer, oh my God, about 10 years ago. And basically I'm not sure even if it integrated with AD or so, or maybe that was earlier, but as a result, you had to have two sets of permissions, SharePoint and Yammer. Is it all now coming to one now?
No, it's its own thing, but it does use AD permissions, so it's a completely separate like application. Like if you go to it, it's got its own configurations, right? It's got its own little, it's its own setup here. So it is they're all completely separate, but they kind of work together, right? They're talking like this is like you could create communities in here for different pieces, and I've seen companies use this to create communities for employee resource groups, right? They call ERGs or so you have a group of like-minded communities inside your organization where they can chat and it's a little more informal, right? A way to communicate on a larger scale. It's not like a team, it's a broader audience when you're using Viva Engage.
Right. All right. Any more questions coming in? No, there's not.
No
All right,
questions.
Tom.
Wow, speechless.
Okay, hang on. Let me just. Okay, so here's question is in terms of pushing it out, what's the integration with Intune? Can you push this out to all of your Intune users?
Well, since it's not really it's not its own app. If you can control Intune in Teams, right? If you're pushing Teams out, it's just a piece of Teams. It's an app inside Teams, so it doesn't have any special. There's no like special Intune settings with this. It's just like another. It's a custom. It is a custom Teams app. That's what it boils down to. If you were to ever build a Teams app, it's no different than a custom Teams app. That's a personal app. And again, I'm not an Intune person, so I'm not sure that there would be anything special about it because it is just part of Teams.
What are the challenges of implementing?
The challenges, so as I showed you before, the differences in the mobile app versus the desktop experience, right? That's one of the challenges, sort of a sticking point with the communications, that it's not like the same experience, right? So people just have to they have to become okay with it. There's no other way, it's not going to change.
So I would have thought if you are one of these companies that have not upgraded to modern and you're still in your classic, you're going to have to update to modern, aren't you?
Absolutely. That's the second one. That's a huge gap, like a huge barrier to getting this installed. If you're not on modern, it's not even an option. You'd have to get to modern first, right? And so that means anybody using classic publishing pages, they have to kind of redo everything, which is not like a lot of people are just not going to do that. It's too costly. They don't, have the budget for it. They don't have the time for it. They'll probably be on classic forever, those type of people. Or yeah, it's not great for those type of people. So again, there's another scenario where you are on modern and you're heavily customized and you're heavily invested, and your intranet is /site/intranet or site/site/ the portal or whatever it's called. You now have to do a site swap, and it's easy to site swap when it's a clean site, but if it's been a heavily customized or a large organization, there's like site swapping limits, right? I think you can site swap if you have a lot of users, but it takes a lot longer. But there are kind of hiccups if you try to site swap something that's been used for quite a while with customizations. Like I've found that the site swap goes good 50% of the time. It's almost like a coin toss. Like I've site swapped a brand new clean site, didn't do it. It wouldn't do it. We have to go through all these steps to there's a page analyzer tool that you can get, and it'll sort of wait. We had to call ultimately ended up calling Microsoft for support because it was a brand new site. They couldn't figure out really why it wouldn't site swap, but eventually we did get it to go. Like after like 2 or 3 times, might have been like just a back-end server glitch or something. After about 2 or 3 times with them on the phone, the third time it's sort of like it's site swap. But that was, I've had times where it just right away site swapped. When they say it could take a couple hours, it was like 5 minutes. It was done.
I would have thought this is a pretty good tool for frontline workers who are not in the office.
And when I was like looking into it and kind of asking myself questions on like, well, what's the value? Why would I use it? I can see for frontline workers, just that using, because they don't have a computer. They're going to use their phones, right? They're going to just go into Teams on their phone. They're not going to go to get the SharePoint app. They're not going to go log into SharePoint separately, right? So when you have your SharePoint site embedded here, you don't have to log in to SharePoint. You're already logged into Teams. So it's single sign-on right into SharePoint. Or if you have the Viva Connections page, the dashboard, which you do have on the mobile phone, it's the dashboard. So it's really going to show them the news that's relevant to them, like the news that's been published, or things maybe in their their dashboard cards, right? So like finding people, maybe they have something training on Viva Learning, maybe it's access to those quick resources that you absolutely must have. Like here's where your timesheet is, right? Here's our employee handbook, here's our vacation calendar, here's our org chart, something like that, right? So those resources, let me flip back, that are going to be really valuable. So you'd see, this is essentially the view you'd have on the phone, just slightly chopped up.
Yep. Responsive. All right, we're almost out of time, and I think we're out of questions. Okay, so Tom, thank you very much for your time. And this is being recorded and be pushed out onto SoundCloud and Spotify. So Tom, thanks so much for being the guest on the show.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure. See you next time.
Thanks.